Hello, hello. Welcome to the new episodio Código Mujer Central VA First Latina Podcast. Today is my honor to present Dr. Héctor Ortiz.
Thank you. My name is Héctor Ortiz. I have the privilege to be here in this area for the last 25 years. And originally from Ecuador, I had the opportunity to get my education in Ecuador, a bachelor's in civil engineering, a master in international relations and diplomacy, and a PhD in psychology that was recognized here in the United States. I has been involved in the community for many years. I had the privilege to write a few books. One is The Creative Energy of Positive Thinking, and the last one, 6 Assets to Grow Personally and Advance Professionally. It is a pleasure to be here with you today.
Dr. Héctor Ortiz also served he was a past district governor of Rotary International, and also he is a leader, like he said before, leader to the community. He was a founder of Estamos Unidos of Pennsylvania. This is a non-profit organization, and many other organizations he served before. Dr. Héctor Ortiz, he presents today the Empower Yourself. Dr. Héctor Ortiz.
Empower yourself. What a topic. I think it's very correlated with what Código Mujer does on daily basis, on continuous basis. I think when we try to empower ourselves, Marisol, the first thing we have to recognize is empowerment can be seen from 2 different dimensions. The first one is from the individual perspective, we all as individuals, as human beings, and the second one from the collective perspective, as a community, as an organization, as a business. Let's focus today a little more in what empowerment means as individuals. Let me start saying that we don't need permission and we don't need anyone to allow us to be ourselves. In other words, empowerment means the opportunity that we all have, the privilege that we all have to become the best version of ourselves. In other words, means that we have to be able to recognize ourselves first, to know about ourselves. Many people, unfortunately, they don't know who they are, what they have, what they bring, the talents, the privileges that we all have. When we talk about empowerment, means that the first thing we have to develop is self-knowing, self-awareness, self-confidence. Let's start with self-knowing. When we are able to know ourselves, meaning that we really understand who we are, why we are here in life, what is the purpose of life, what is your mission of life, and what do you plan to achieve, to pretend to get from life. And I can ask this survey just randomly, but unfortunately, I would say most of the people were not able to answer this question. I ask you this question to the people who are listening, the audience of today's podcast. Do you have a mission of life? Do you have a purpose of life? Do you know what you want to achieve in life? If you don't know those answers, then we need to start looking to those first. That's the beginning of empowerment. There is a tale, a story, that a little girl who was wandering in the desert and then took a boat and started navigating and asked a wise man, I am going in the right direction, sir. Can you please help me? And the wise man said, where are you going? I don't know. Well, any direction is fine. Why? Because if you don't know where are you going, how do you pretend to know if you are in the right direction or not? That means that in order to succeed in life, to achieve in life, to be the happiest person that you want to be, the most successful individuals we want to be, we want to know what we want to achieve, what we want to conquer, what do we want for life. In other words, start with self-knowing ourselves. And in order to know ourselves, we have to recognize all these elements that we just talked about. The same thing goes with the level 2, with this self-awareness. With self-awareness, we are able to recognize not just who we are, but also what we do. And there is a difference, Marisol, between who we are, what we do, and what do we want to become. 3 different stages. The first one, when we know who we are all those attributes, all those blessings that we receive, and many times we complain so much. Said, if I just have this, what this person have, I will be happy. If I just have those talents that person who easily is able to get, I will be happy. If I just have dream job that I just would like to have, I will be happy. In other words, we see that tend to live in the deficit mode. What the deficit mode is, when we are always looking for more, but if we don't know where we are going, in what direction we would like to go, then it does not matter. Because the first thing we have to do is to recognize who we are, and then what do we do. The last thing that I want to mention is, what do you want to become? Because when you recognize who you are, when you recognize what to do, then the next step is, what do you want to become? In our society, many people focus more on the haves. I want this. I would love to have this. What to have instead of what to become. Self-empowerment starts with ourselves, to recognize all the values, all the attributes, all the skills that we all have. And if we don't have those, if we have a direction where to go, then we are going to be able to go in the direction that that little girl wants to go, when they know what is the place that she would like to be. In many words, when I talk about one of my books, The Creative Energy of Positive Thinking, for instance, I mentioned that the north is more important than the destiny. What this means is that as soon as you know what direction you would like to go, in what direction you would like to achieve, you would like to be, the destiny doesn't matter. As long as I know where I would like to go, the destiny doesn't matter. The journey allows all of us to enjoy that possibility to conquer whatever we want to achieve. In other words, when we talk about self-empowerment and empowering ourselves as a human beings, as an individuals, means that we all have the privilege to take action, to validate what we do, to recognize the dreams and aspirations that any human being has. But unfortunately, many times even our own friends, our own family, dictate our aspirations. How many of you, those who are in the audience, one time said, I would like to get this, and said, no, you will never get that. How you are going to be getting that? You're crazy. You don't know what you're thinking. In other words, those limitations of self-limitations that oneself of someone else impose become the dynamics of the day, the dynamics of life. Someone once says that there is no limits. The sky is the limit. Probably you grow up when you were in school. There is no limit. The sky is the limit. But many times, the limits that exist, if they exist, they are the only ones that are imposed by ourselves. Because of fear, because of the opportunity to go to the unknown places, to the unknown territories, allow that one self-impose the lack of empowerment. When we talk about individuals, it is very important to recognize that we are the architects, the owners of our destiny. If you are a believer, and you don't have to be a believer, but if you are a believer, you know that the creation for these perfect human beings, when anything is connected inside each individual and outside of the universe, anything has a ramification, a connection, and is so smart the way that we were created that even the infinite pain that we may have in one nail, you don't care until you get that pain, until you discover how important health is. and how many attributes we have. One time there was a poor guy who was telling, oh, you talk because you had education, you talk because you had a good job, or you talk because you had been successful and lucky to get what you get. And I asked this person, tell me, if someone is able to offer you an amount of money for your eyes, let's say $5 million, for your eyes, to take away your eyes, will you be able to sell those? Would you be able to take your two hands or your two legs? If someone offers $1 million, will you do that? Most of the people will respond no. And that's the privilege, that's the fortune, that's the wealth that we all have as human beings, but we don't realize until we had a pain. Like the date or the food. Empowerment has to come with oneself. When we talk about empowering in the collective way, let's show this now from the community perspective, from the business perspective, from the group perspective. Let's see Código Mujer as the board of directors, Código Mujer as the group who made this possible. Now empowerment has a different dimension. Empowerment now needs that those who lead a cause, maybe the president, maybe the executive director, maybe the team leader, now you have another responsibility to empower those who are around you. And why this is beneficial for everyone? Because when we empower others, we all grow. Let me give an example. I am the president of an organization, and we had a board that worked with us, most of them or all of them volunteers. If I am the leader and I say, no, I will do everything, I don't need anything, you are okay, you get, and become get tired and become get less, having less opportunities to be productive. And in that way, I am the only one who do everything. I have to start not just delegating, because many leaders delegate, and it's okay to delegate. You are going to be doing this, like in today's podcast, you are going to be in charge of this, you are going to be, that's teamwork. But empowerment means I trust you, I believe in you, and even if you make a mistake, it is fine, because we all grow. No one has told me in life that the mistakes were terrible, that they will never try again, because that doesn't exist. We learn from mistakes. We learn from failures. Thomas Edison says, I didn't fail 1,000 times in create the light bulb. I learned 1,000 ways of not how to do it in that way. In other words, it's how you see life. You see as a deficit, or you see it as an abundance. An empowerment comes with a mindset. That's the place that I want to go. Everything is a mindset. Start with attitude, and attitude generate thinking, and with thinking we generate doers, and with doers we generate action, and with action things can happen. Is that what you were looking for, Marisa?
Yeah, but I got a question for you. This, we're a group, okay? We're a group, there's a Código Mujer for 6 members. What we can do, like women, to empower ourselves? What is your recommendation for us, for example?
Excellent question. I will set 3 tips, 3 approaches. The first one, learning never ends. Even if you are the more smart person in the group, yes, you know a little more than others, but that doesn't mean that you know everything and you don't have to learn anymore. I remember one time I was in the Mount Pleasant Hispanic Center 20 years ago, and I asked one of the leaders of that Mount Pleasant Hispanic Center, we had a workshop on leadership, you would like to come and join me? Oh, I don't need any more. I am a leader already. I don't need to learn more. That just emphasizes how little the individual knows, and you know what happened? The Mount Pleasant failed. And the Mount Pleasant was no anymore. That gave me the information that is important to share, that learning never ends. If we want to empower ourselves with the first decision, let's learn a little more. Even if you are successful, go to the next step. Go to the next stage of life, because learning never ends. Second thing is important. I mentioned change the words. Instead of delegating, use empowerment. When you delegate, you ask someone to do something in the way that you want to be doing. You ask someone to do it exactly precision way that you want, and then the person is not learning anything. The person is just repeating what you ask him to do. But you empower to give the total liberty to take action and do something that is important. Two things. One is creativity, and the second is innovation. That's the only way that the world has grown, with creativity and with innovation.
Dr. Ortiz, that's the empowerment you talked about. This vary across the different culture, belief, or creed. Why?
This is an excellent question, because we many times tend to believe that if we create something to solve a particular issue, we can apply it to everything, like the one-size-fits-all approach, which is not correct, doesn't exist. When we identify ways to empower ourselves, those may be different ways that people apply, depends on all these differences that you mentioned. Let's mention an example based on culture. Based on culture, traditions, or customs, the individuals may have different ways of doing. Let's see it in South America, for instance, when there is a predominant way of doing things based on the main performance of the family, tend to be the head of the family and everyone has to follow. And in that way, women in that particular case may not feel empowered, may feel that they don't have the decisions to make. I am not saying that all the women or Latin Americans. I am just giving an example of a potential possibility that exists based on customs and traditions. Of course, education, level of income, and many other aspects may make the difference. But we have to realize that when different ways of doing things is transmitted from generation to generation, that creates apparent behaviors. And the apparent behaviors allow people to continue behaving in the same way, because this is what my father did, this is what my grandfather did, this is what my mother did, this is what my grandmother did. To break those different ways of thinking, the person has to be exposed to different ways of living. And if the person is able to get education, to travel, to move ahead, those experiences allow the individual to think differently. I remember one time was a person who get a PhD, a black lady with a PhD, and was sharing her story. One of those that she mentioned is that she has to break with the family in order to move forward and get education. Because when she get the bachelor's degree, immediately the family said, "What do you think you are? Because you had a bachelor's, now you don't respect us, now you don't come and visit us, and you don't spend time with us. Now you go to other networks and go to other people." So they feel that they feel less, that they are less because someone was the first one to get a college degree. And when the person gets a master or get a PhD, what works? The person has to distance themselves from their family, not just friends, in order to go ahead and get and achieve. Because the people know that they don't like it, they don't love it, they don't want to have someone to leave them, because that's what will eventually happen. When you grow up, when you get your education, higher education, you're going to be looking for other networks to go to be part of the 500 Fortune companies. And that way you will feel less. And that's when the complications, the contradictions, the fight many times is that this also happening in the culture of generational poverty, for instance. And I had made a lot of studies on generational poverty right here in central Pennsylvania. And we have seen that when people in generational poverty who come from the poor neighborhoods go to get education, have the same similarities of encounters with family members. culture definitely affects how people are empowered, how people to achieve or get empowerment. And many times, again, we are the architect of our own destiny. We have to make decisions, many times hard decisions. But that's what you are here in this world to conquer. Remember at the beginning, I mentioned your plan, your vision, your mission, your objectives. But if we don't have it, people don't have those intentionalities, then looks like we never come.
Yes. Dr. Ortiz, the last question for you. I know you had written a lot about positive thinking. For example, this is the positive thinking of the energy of creativity. What is the relationship between positive thinking and empower? What is the relation? What is that different, or what is exactly the relation is involved?
Excellent question again. And yes, I had wrote constantly about positive thinking. You can find in social media, in LinkedIn, you can find in my website, you can find my books. And typically, constantly, from time to time, I write many ways about positive thinking. To ask this question about the connection between positive thinking and empowerment, again, we can see this from different perspectives. The first one is that it's a mindset. Remember, I mentioned at the beginning, it's a mindset. And as a mindset, we have to realize that our common sense of the world is that we tend to see the negative more than the positive. We tend to focus more in what is complaints, in what is bad, is what is not good, instead of what is going well. That's by default. And the other way of seeing this is, I don't know if you have heard about the broken windows law. And someone was to demonstrate what happened in a good neighborhood if someone's abandoned a car and broke the windows. And what happened? And I wrote this in my book. They went to a wealthy neighborhood and abandoned a car and broke the windows. And they went to see what happened. First day, nice neighborhood, nobody's taking anything, nobody's robbing anything, good. Second day, third day, the car abandoned, then someone start taking the mirror. The fourth day, someone start breaking something. After a month, the whole car was stolen. And then abandoned. And then people start putting trash and then putting all the stuff there and become a nightmare. A wonderful neighborhood. The theory of the broken windows is that this can happen in any place. Now, when we go to poor neighborhoods, that happen everywhere. And the demonstration was that can happen everywhere. Because when one becomes used to do bad things, everybody is going to be used to the bad things. Why I mention this is because in this deficit model that we live in society, we tend to focus more in negative. And again, I can give examples of what happened in social media, what happened in the news. Most, I think, 70 to 75% minimum is negative stuff, meaning things that happen badly. Crimes, drugs, and many stuff. I'm not saying that's what happened, but we highlight that this is the only thing that happened. When the opposite, in many ways, actions like you are doing with the Código Mujer, try to empower others, try to recognize the value, the attributes that people bring, is happening in many ways. We have many organizations doing this, but we don't recognize, we don't highlight, we don't usually share. And what happened is, because again, I mentioned at the beginning, we are thinking always in how much can I have more, instead how more can I share? How much can I become better, instead how much wealthy I can achieve. And in that way, when we analyze all these parameters of life, we have to recognize that we have the decision as a human beings to change that. Not someone else, not my boss, not my CEO of my company, not my leader of my city. It's me. Start with me. And empowerment gives us that opportunity, that great opportunity, I will say, to start changing with our own lives, to start creating a new beginning. Every single day we have the opportunity to empower ourselves. Now, the question is, do you believe it or not? Because many people may say, yes, I have heard about that. The question is, how many of us has practiced those on constant basis, on daily basis? And when you are able to believe that that is possible, remember the limitation that we mentioned, because we self-impose those invisible limitations. Many times of these limitations may be in our subconscious. We can say logically, no, I will never do that. Of course, I think positively. Of course, I want to achieve in life. That's the logic mind. But what about the emotional one? What about the spiritual one? What about the physic, the body itself? All of them has to be connected. I mentioned this in my book. Because if we don't connect all the elements that define us as human beings, then it's going to be more difficult to think positively, and it's even more difficult to empower ourselves. Because empowerment starts with a mindset. Positive thinking starts with a mindset. And empowerment comes as soon as you know what you want to do, where you want to go, what do you want to become. That's it.
Amazing, Dr. Ortiz. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. This is a good topic. If you want to say something to the public, there was for podcast, maybe where we can find your books, talk about where they can find, what do you recommend. Now this is for you, the camera for you.
I would like to mention to those who are listening today, many times we are cheap with ourselves. What I mean is we don't want to invest in ourselves. And I used to do that. I used to do that many years ago until I read a book that told me that we are cheap with ourselves. In other words, we have to spend even in gas every single week how many dollars we spend. It's mandatory, it's required. We don't even think about it. We just go and fill our tank. Right? Because it's a need. We need transportation. The question is, how many of us go and grow, go and learn, go and develop ourselves as a human beings? Remember at the beginning I mentioned that something that we never stop is learning. Because the time that you stop learning, you start dying. A doctor one time says, if you start moving, you start lying. You start getting away. You start dying. The question is, we are not able to invest in ourselves. How many of you, and this is a response to yourself, those in the audience, in the last year, has invested in going to a workshop, to go to a presentation about growth, personal growth, self-growth, self-development? How many of you had get a book, had get a listening audio that allow you to develop yourself and grow? If you ask how many people do that on a regular basis, you probably can get the answer. Very few. Because we always say, oh, I would like to have that, but I don't have money for that. But we're spending gas even if we want to go. That's the correlation that I usually make. The more that you know, the more that we recognize how little we know. And that's a very important beginning for self-empowerment, for self-development. Because if we don't recognize that, then we are like the little girl asking where direction I should go. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter. And the final comment that I would like to make to all of us is, when I wrote my book that is in English and Spanish now, The Creative Energy of Positive Thinking, o La Energía Creativa del Pensamiento Positivo, my goal, as you see in the subtitle right here, says, an approach to the basic concept of happiness. That was my intention. How people can be more happy. How we can enjoy this miracle called life. And I rediscovered myself in writing the book that happiness is not a purpose of life, that there is something more meaningful, more important, more transcendental than happiness, which is peace.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. And remember, you can find the book for Amazon. This is my pleasure to present Dr. Héctor Ortiz, for you know, he's my husband. That one was Código Mujer Central Peer First Latina Podcast. Thank you so much.